What's up, guys? Quick video here. Going to try to get through this quickly and talk very quickly about the MLB after I recap and go through the football very quickly as well. Won on the Chicago Bears on Thursday. If you were following me on that one, that was a nice win there. Chicago, it looked like they might blow it. Washington started getting back into the game. It was like, oh no, Chicago going to implode horrifically for the second straight week, but that was not to be. They were able to win the game outright still. Washington, their offensive line, probably the worst in the NFL, allowed like 5 or 6 more sacks. I think 29 on the season. Just horrible. Sam Howell, I don't think he's that good anyway, but he's not getting any help from that offensive line. Washington's offense, not good. And the Chicago Bears were able to do it for me and for you, if you guys followed me on that. Nice win on that one. College football today, coming up in like a half hour now. A couple of the lines have moved on the games that I put out in my video. My video is still up, so you can check that out. I still like all these sides, but Missouri has come towards me, so I think I missed out on the 7 when it was out there. I think I'm sitting on a +6 on that one. That's gone down to 4.5, so I kind of anticipated where like the professional money was going to come in correctly on that game. It looks like I think the pros are putting some big bets on Missouri there. They like Missouri. I still like the side. I don't know if I like the 4.5. It's a little bit of a difference from 6. The 5s are kind of like in no man's land there, but I still like the side. I mean, if you were to take the +4.5, I wouldn't say that I disagree with it. You're losing some value there, but I like the Missouri side in general. And then the Arkansas game, I took them 11.5, and I did not anticipate that line would move up, and it's up to 13, maybe even 13.5. And obviously, if I like them at 11.5, I like them at 13.5. I don't know if it's going to hit the key number of 14. Between like 13.5, and 11.5, there's not that much of a difference. I'm not that concerned about it. And it seems like when the line moves against me, my situational read is a lot of times good, and still I still wind up winning that bet. So I don't know. Hopefully that's the case here. Sitting on the Arkansas 11.5. Obviously, I like the side. I think Ole Miss is in a terrible spot. And a couple of extra leans in college football quickly. Georgia, Kentucky. I think the perception here is going to be these are 2 undefeated teams, SEC teams. They're both really good teams, and that this is going to be like a competitive battle between those 2 teams. And I think the general consensus for maybe like the recreational type of bettor that looks at this line is going to think, hey, that's a pretty big line, 14.5 on Georgia. I don't agree with that. I think that Georgia is the significantly better team here. I don't think Kentucky has proven that much. Florida's down. They handled Florida pretty easily. A good win, but Georgia is unlike anything that they've faced so far. I think Georgia's going to be too much for Kentucky to handle. I lean Georgia there. The books are telling you that they're the better team significantly. There's a reason this line is as high as it is, even though I think even they expect a lot of the like tickets to be coming in on Kentucky there, and the thinking being that the line looks too big. I think the perception is different than the reality, and I think Georgia is the side there at -14.5. And then Colorado, Arizona State. This line has gone down a bit. Colorado's -4.5 on the road, and it's down to like 3.5. And it's been reverse line movement against the ticket percentage and the money percentage are both on Colorado. Colorado still remains a public team, and what they did last week, people saw they got back into the game and they made it look like it was a close game against USC, but I think it was more that USC had a massive lead and they just took their foot off the gas, and Colorado still can score, and USC's defense is not very good. So Colorado made it look quite close. They actually got back in the game, and I think that's going to do 2 things. It's going to make Colorado continue to be overvalued because it looks like they played USC closer than they actually did, and Colorado felt like they were in that game. They got back in that game at the end, and of course they had to put in a bunch of effort to mount that pretty significant comeback there to get back into that game. So I think after that, and after the Oregon game before that, where they just had to face a really physical Oregon team and got crushed, 2 like big effort games. They're big games, their biggest games on the schedule. After that, I think they're going to be kind of in a hangover / letdown spot here. And the perception is that Arizona State is just a mess and not good at all. This line, it looks like a trap. It looks too easy to lay the points with Colorado there. So I think Arizona State probably would be the way that I would lean in that one, and not just my anti-Colorado bias there, but the thing that would keep me off of it, because this was almost going to be one of my plays, Arizona State is coming off a close game where they almost pulled off an upset as well, which I mentioned in my Cal-Oregon State play. The Cal game, Cal was a big favorite there, and Arizona State played them pretty close. So Arizona State's coming off a near upset there, so they could be in a slight letdown mode, but I mean, they're facing Kentucky, so I think they would still have motivation there to be like it would make sense that they would be the more focused team than Kentucky in a spot like that. And speaking of the Oregon State Cal game, that line has also gone down. I believe I'm on Cal 9.5, and that line's gone down to like 7.5. I would take 7.5 or anything above that. I wouldn't really want to take the +7, or certainly not anything below that. 7 being a very key number there. I would at least want to get 7.5 there. So hopefully you got in early on that. We got the Major League Baseball Divisional Round here, where you get some interesting matchups here. All the teams that won in the wild card won in 2 games, so they got kind of that extra day off. So the teams that are hosting these games, the division winners, etc., got more time off than those teams did, which in situations like this in different sports, the more time off, you can see a team come in like cold and their timing isn't quite right away. It might be less of an effect there in baseball because it's a little bit less of a momentum sport, although there is still timing involved. So I don't think that the extra rest is totally a positive necessarily, but those teams that have the extra rest also have been able to set up their pitching rotations. They're typically going to have like one of their best starters pitching in this game here, game 1 of the series, whereas the teams that were in the wild card round used potentially a couple of their best starters in that round, and they're using like a starter who's a little bit less good in this one. We got the National League games are big spreads. The Braves and the Dodgers, both pretty big favorites. I don't know if I'd want to touch either of those. Suarez is pitching for Philly. He's not very good. His whip is really awful, like in the 1.4s or something. I wouldn't trust him there against Strider, even though Strider might be like the less experienced pitcher there. I don't know if I would want to touch that. I don't know how much value there might be in Philadelphia there, really. I don't think there's much value in Atlanta either because everybody knows how good they are, but I wouldn't want to touch that. Arizona, Dodgers, there might be a little bit more value there on Arizona potentially because, Merrill Kelly is pitching. He's a good pitcher, but I believe his stats against the Dodgers are pretty bad, like over 300 OBA. So I don't know if I'd want to get involved in that either. It's Merrill Kelly against Kershaw, who of course is the ace that everybody knows on the Dodgers. So I don't think you're getting any value on the Dodgers there either, but I wouldn't want to touch Kelly even though he's been a pretty good pitcher this year, one of Arizona's best starters, one of the 2 that are really good, really. But I don't know, because his track record is bad against the Dodgers hitters. I don't know I'd want to touch that. And then you got the AL matchups have closer lines on them. Texas, Baltimore. It looks like the line has kind of moved towards Texas a little bit, with Baltimore being the favorite, but it looks like more of the money might be on Baltimore. I'm not totally sure about that, but that's Andrew Heaney against Kyle Bradish. Bradish has kind of been Baltimore's like best pitcher on the season. His stats are really good. I don't know if Baltimore's like starting rotation is really that good, but Bradish has been good. His stats against Texas are really good. A 167 OBA, lifetime and 48 at-bats, whereas Heaney has much worse numbers, a whip in the high 1.3s. So, I mean, that might even be indicative that his ERA should be higher than the 4, whatever that it actually is. I would kind of lean to the Orioles in that one. I think the pitching matchup doesn't bode that well for Texas there. And Texas looked really good wiping out Tampa. But remember, Tampa in that first game made a ton of mistakes, a lot of errors. I don't know that you can put much stock in what Texas did in that series necessarily, even though their hitting certainly is good. But they got to go up against Bradish, and he's held them down. And he might be the counter that a team needs to an offense like Texas, where I don't think you can like pin your hopes on Andrew Heaney. So I would lean to the Orioles. And Heaney, a 268 OBA lifetime against the Orioles. Not that great. So I would lean Baltimore slightly there. And then in the other one, I think the strongest, I'm not going to play any of these, but I think the strongest lean would actually be the Twins against Houston. The Twins, man, they continue to surprise people, but they're a sneaky team. Their pitching rotation is quite good. It's one of the better ones in the league. Really, I think their offense is kind of the main question with them. And they have Bailey Ober pitching today, and he's been one of their best starters, and they got him going as kind of their third starter here. So he's been quite good. I don't know what I think his stats against Houston are not good, though, so that's the one thing that would keep me off of this, because it looks like the public is kind of on Houston here, but the line is kind of moving against them and moving them down to a smaller favorite here. They're only like in the minus 130s now or something like that, and I think Baltimore is like 140s. But Houston has Verlander pitching. Verlander against Ober. Verlander's got the experience, of course. He's got a ton of experience, but he's old. But his stats, career-wise, are good against these Twins hitters. I think under a 200 OBA, whereas Ober's against the Houston hitters are over 300 OBA. So even though Ober's been good, and if you just look like in a vacuum, Ober versus Verlander, I would say it's not even definitive that Ober's the worst of those two pitchers there. I like Ober. He can definitely rack up the strikeouts. He's a really good pitcher, but in a spot here, I think he struggled against Houston's offense. So even though I would lean to Minnesota there still slightly, and I think it might be the strongest of the leans on the board. I don't think any of them are very strong. His track record against Houston and Verlander's against Minnesota would kind of keep me off of that, because I think that's going to kind of balance out any discrepancy in the starting pitching matchup there is. All right, that's going to do it. Have fun watching the games today, and peace.